Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Catholic Table Talk Podcast. This is the podcast where everything Catholic is on the table. Welcome to another great week this week, wherever you're listening on our media platforms. Thank you for your continued support as you're watching or listening at work, at the coffee shop, at home, doing the dishes, wherever you might be doing. Thank you for your continued support. Wonderful feedback. If you want to leave us feedback or a show or topic or a show or a speaker request, please feel free to drop them in the comments or email the official email of Catholic Table Talk, catholictt@gmail.com. Again, it's catholictt@gmail.com for show and speaker requests or anything you want about the show. We'll be more than happy to see it. So now we move on to today's show, and you might be saying we're still continuing the month of kind of abortion, right? As we await the Supreme Court's ruling of the Roe v. Wade voting, and that is correct. You might be listening to this more in the future, down the road, let's say in a year or two. Yes, that might be old news by then. But abortion is still a hot topic in the church, and it probably will. Hopefully, it goes away, but it's still a hot topic as of right now. So we'll continue our talks on abortion with another special guest, and he's been on the show multiple times already. A great Catholic apologist, taking time off work today to come and talk to us. He's the author of How Old Is Your Church? Of course, Mr. Ken Litchfield joins the show again. So Ken, great to have you back on. Thanks for your time again, as always. And man, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having me back. I really love doing this stuff, and happy to be a guest on your show and help people out to understand, why the Catholic Church, stands up against abortion. And I'm old enough to actually be around from when abortion first became legal in 1973. Right. And I remember the church standing up against abortion from the very beginning. This is not something new for the Catholic Church.
No, it's not. And, in the first episode, we talked to one of my priests here at my parishes, Father Gabriel Wiles, just kind of church's viewpoint of abortion. Last episode, we had a great friend of yours on, Gary Machuda. We talked about the history, dove into the history of it. And we're going to do a little bit of history today as well, but also answering common objections about it. And today we're talking about a lot of other stuff about abortion. Like I said, the history of it. Where do Catholics and Protestants agree or disagree on abortion? And stuff like that. So hopefully it's a fun show, and hopefully, like you said, hopefully helping people understand why abortion is so bad and helping people understand what abortion is. That's what hopefully they get out of the show. So come right at you, Ken, here. Where do Catholics and non-Catholics, such as Protestants or atheists, agree or disagree on abortion? Because some of it they agree on, some of it they do not.
Right. In protesting outside of abortion clinics, right. That's often where Catholics and non-Catholics, can meet with a common goal of, stopping abortion. Right. The Methodist Episcopal Church in Africa, they pretty much share our views on abortion. The Assemblies of God Church share our views on abortion. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons, they share our views on abortion. Hinduism shares our views on abortion. The Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, they share our views. And the Southern Baptist Convention share our views on abortion. Now, there are other Protestant churches that support some abortion rights, but with limits, and that would be the Episcopal Church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, and the United Methodist Church. And there's the groups that support, well, have few limits on abortion would be like Conservative Judaism, Presbyterian Church USA, Reformed Judaism, Unitarian Universalists, and United Church of Christ. And the groups that have no official position would be Islam, Buddhism, National Baptist Convention, and Orthodox Judaism. This is according to the Pew Research Center. So they did the research, and I'd like to give them credit for their work. So some groups share our views, and some have limited, abortion views. Now, the Catholic Church only allows what would be considered abortion in cases like ectopic pregnancy, where the egg is starting to grow in the fallopian tube. And if that is allowed to develop, that will eventually kill the mother and kill the baby. So in that kind of case, the removing that egg that's growing in, or that fertilized egg that's growing in the wrong spot, is a good thing. But the goal is not to kill that baby. The goal is just to save the life of the mother and the baby that dies as a result of that procedure.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you for clarifying that. And what you were talking about with the just Protestants, Methodists, United Methodists, they are okay with abortion sometimes. Just kind of the history of it, like we talked with Gary Machuda and Father Gabriel, was, abortion is way back in the Bible. It's in the Catechism. It's in the Decade. So it's really rooted in the Catholic faith. And some people are like, what? How can Catholics and other Christians, like Methodists or Lutherans, or Methodists, I should say, how can Methodists are okay with abortion? But to me, the way I see it is, look back all the way from the beginning of the Catholic Church. It was the Catholic Church, and then everyone broke off, like you mentioned earlier in the past episode that you were on. Protestants are basically their own church of the stuff that they were hearing. So, I mean, I don't know if they want to have abortions, but you can kind of see, okay, they broke off, and now they're against abortion, but now they're kind of for abortion. So that's where I kind of get it from. Is that a good argument to make?
In that, Protestants don't have a unified decision on abortion, or?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the big problem with Protestantism, right. That, they don't know, they don't have agreement on hardly anything other than the Catholics got it wrong.
Right.
So,
I just threw that one out at you, but that's the
sure.
way I saw it, because it's kind of like, well, why do some Protestants, some are for abortion and some are against? It's like, well, it was just one church way back when Jesus founded it. It was a Catholic church, and everyone broke off, and yeah, like you said, they all agree on basically anything. So yeah, that's probably an argument to make if someone approaches you with that question. So I guess we can move on if you're willing, Ken. In today's society, we all know what's going on in the news. It's just overwhelming to think about what's going on in the news. And a lot of people are kind of lost. They're maybe confused. They're just having really hard times. But today's society, you might hear a lot of Catholic leaders say, is often confused. But what are they confused with? Are they confused about what abortion is? Kind of the sex of leading up to abortion? What are they really confused with?
Right. A lot of confusion came in with the sexual revolution of the 1960s. Again, I was around back then, so I know how it happened.
Right.
I was quite young, but I was around then.
Right.
And, the idea of free love and, love the one you're with and things like that. Um, and, another big saying in the 60s and then into the 70s was, sex, love, and rock and roll or something like that. Or sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's what it was. Yeah. So, there was a lot of, cultural ideas going around then that, sex was just for entertainment. And it was because we now had the contraception pill. So you can have sex anytime you want. Doesn't matter. And the idea of contraception was always rejected by Protestantism up until the 1930s. And the Anglican Church at that time allowed contraception, but only for married couples only. And it was because the whole world was in a depression at that time, and they thought it was maybe a good idea to not have so many kids if you can't afford to feed those kids. So the Anglican Church was the first to open the door on contraception. So once you start allowing contraception, then the idea that you can have sex anytime you want without the possibility of having children, right. Sex becomes a form of entertainment then, and not the actual procreation unitive purpose that God had for it originally. And then when contraception fails, because either you weren't using it right or you forgot to use it or whatever, abortion becomes the backup plan for the consequence of having sex without contraception. So that's how we ended up with abortion being legalized in 1973 in the United States. And then many countries followed suit after that, using the same arguments that were used in the United States.
Sure.
And I can cover the argument that they used back then if you want.
Yeah, I would love to hear that. So go ahead. I'm sure the arts would too.
Okay. So, as most people know, the landmark case was Roe versus Wade, and that was a lady named Norma Roe that a legal society picked up the case, and it was against Wade County, I believe, which was, I think, in Florida. And the case went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the decision from the Supreme Court was based on the idea that, well, we don't really know when life begins, so we're going to allow abortion. But they did have restrictions back then, in that abortion would be allowed in the first trimester, and there would be limited abortion in the second trimester, only to save like the life of the mother or something like that, some kind of critical situation.
Right.
And no abortion allowed in the third trimester. And now with our current medical technology, any baby that makes it to the third trimester, we can save that baby, if it's born early. That's not a problem. And as far back as 20 weeks now, which is only halfway through the normal 40-week pregnancy cycle, we can save those babies. And now that we have ultrasound machines and even 4D ultrasound machines where you can actually see the baby moving around, you can hear the sounds inside the womb and everything, we know when life begins. So that's why Roe versus Wade was, bound to be overturned eventually anyway, because medical technology has allowed us to save younger and younger babies and to get better insight as to what's going on inside the womb.
Right. I mean, and that's a great point. That's a great example. Like it's like you said, they didn't have the technology back then. When it first started, so it's kind of like, to me, I look at it like COVID-19. COVID-19 broke out. We get, it was really bad at first, but then we got vaccines. We got other stuff. We got this and that. Well, and we know how to treat it. We're same thing with here. People are like, we don't know when life starts, but now you do, because you can see it, like you said, which is amazing. So yeah, that's the good that's coming out from the bad, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
And just as to close that out,
sure.
Norma Ray, who the Roe versus Wade decision was based on, she ended up having her baby, and she was glad that she had her baby, and she is a staunch pro-life supporter to this day. So, if you look into the history of Roe versus Wade, you know the pro-abortion camp, their case starts falling apart real quick.
Yeah, it does. It does, and hopefully in the next in the coming days, so to say, they overturn Roe versus Wade, because like you said, it's the case is falling apart for it, for sure. So I in the past two episodes about abortion, I brought up to both of the speakers that, to me, when a Protestant who is for abortion, or even a Catholic who is for abortion, or anyone who is for abortion, or doesn't mind abortion, comes to me and says, why are you against abortion? And to me, I just tell them it's not right. If people are against mass shootings and all this other stuff, wars, and killing that way, how come they're not against killing an unborn baby? Like you mentioned, I mean, just all the technology. If we can hear and see that they're breathing and everything, why do you kill it? It's against the fifth commandment. Um, and I didn't really know about this, but people say, is there really proof about that? To me, my proof is the ultrasound, but proof that abortion is killing an unborn human being. What do you say to that question? Is that a good argument?
Right. Okay. So I guess the first thing we have to do is establish whether a fertilized egg is a human being.
Right.
Okay. Now, the sperm cell and the egg cell, they both contain half the amount of chromosomes that a normal human cell contains. And when they join together, usually in the uterus of a woman, um, that egg becomes a fertilized egg and now has a full set of human chromosomes. It only has human chromosomes, and so you can't call it anything but human. Okay.
Right.
Now, the question then becomes, is it alive? Okay. So if NASA found a one cell creature on Mars that was capable of consuming chemicals as food and excreting chemicals as waste, they would say they found life on Mars. Okay.
True.
So this fertilized egg inside the woman's uterus is capable of consuming chemicals as food and excreting chemicals as waste. After it implants in the wall of the uterus, it starts, getting more nutrition from the mother. And let's see, the fertilized egg is capable, from the very beginning, of consuming chemicals as food and excreting chemicals as waste. And as it's implanted and then therefore starts getting nutrition from the mother, the cells continue to multiply, and then they start differentiating as early as 2 weeks um, into the multiplication process, shall we say.
Okay.
And by 5 weeks, what has now differentiated into different cells, that human being in there has a heart that is beating and has brain function that maintains that heartbeat. Now, outside the womb, we count those people as living. There are people that are on ventilators that can't breathe on their own, but we don't count them as dead. We just count them as not being able to breathe on their own.
Right.
So, but they have enough brain function to maintain a heartbeat, and they have a heartbeat. So those two criteria that count as a live human being on the outside of the womb are now existent on the inside of the womb. And by 8 weeks, it does look like a tiny human being. So 2 months into the pregnancy, it looks like a tiny human being. It might only be 2 inches long, but it's got a head, a body, 2 legs, and 2 arms normally. So we can't call that, anything but a human being, and it is alive because it's consuming food and excreting waste. So that's how we know that biologically, this is not just emotionally or, hoping that it's just a clump of cells.
Right.
By 8 weeks, it looks like a human being. It's acting like a human being. And, that's only a month after a woman might know that she's pregnant. And at
Right.
5 weeks, it has a heartbeat and a brain function, which we generally count as a live human being.
Yeah. Oh, it's a pretty good indication that it is true. So awesome.
And
Right.
now, in the history of the Catholic Church, as far back as 391 AD, a Christian named John Chrysostom wrote about abortion, and he says, "Why do you sow where the field is eager to destroy the fruit? Where there are medicines of sterility, oral contraceptives, where there is murder before birth. You do not even let a harlot remain only a harlot, but you make her a murderess as well." So he's talking about how, a prostitute would be abused by men, and she would be taking herbs or whatever as contraception. But if she did become pregnant, then she would undergo other procedures to kill the baby that she might be carrying so that she could go back to prostitution. So, as far back as 391, and the Didache in 70 AD, the church has been against abortion.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like everything in the Catholic Church. Everything goes way back. So like you said, in the Didache, it goes way back. It's Catholic Church was against abortion from the start, and like you said, a few weeks in, you can really tell it is a human being breathing. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, just a couple of the things. In
Sure.
the 1200s, Thomas Aquinas, he taught that ensoulment, the implantation of the human soul, at that time they didn't have any ultrasound. They're just kind of like going from what they could tell from the outside.
Sure.
And basically back then, a lot of people thought that when a woman could feel the child move inside her, that's when the baby became alive. Before that, it was just kind of a growing clump of human cells, perhaps. And in the 1500s, there was a guy named Saint Antonius, who gave his opinion that if a woman was pregnant but had not experienced that movement of the baby that was considered ensoulment, that baby could be killed if there was a good reason, to protect the life of the mother. Right. But, it's not he was in favor of abortion. It was just, if the baby hadn't reached ensoulment yet, it could potentially be allowed, but it was still not a good idea.
Right.
Yeah. One other thing that people should know, that in the 1800s, a Catholic monk named Gregor Mendel, he discovered that the traits of the offspring come from both parents, not just the father. Before that time, it was generally considered that all the traits of the child came from the father through his semen. They didn't understand that half the DNA came from the father and half from the mother before that. They thought the seed of the man went into the woman and grew in the woman like she was some, incubator for the seed of the man to grow. But in Gregor Mendel, he figured out that the traits of the offspring come from the mother and the father, not just the father. And he was a Catholic monk.
Right. Wait, very cool.
So that's all we need to talk about on that question. There's
Okay.
more I could talk about, but
doesn't matter to me. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
no problem. No problem.
So just great stuff. That kind of leads us to the next question. You kind of talked about it some, but just more deeply, I guess, to get into is why people in today's society is convinced it's not killing a human being. I mean, I know you touched on that briefly. Yeah, I mean, are they just confused? Are they lost? Where do they go to for that?
Right. So the two main promoters of abortion are Planned Parenthood and the National Abortion Rights Action League, more commonly known as PP and NARAL.
Right.
And Planned Parenthood goes all the way back to 1916, and their goal back then was to reduce the population of the undesirable people, which included people who were mentally impaired or had other birth defects, or Black people. Their goal was to eliminate Black people. And Margaret Sanger was the founder of Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood used to have a statue for Margaret Sanger and even promote the Margaret Sanger Award until the BLM movement, brought forth the history of Margaret Sanger and that she was against Black people. And Planned Parenthood's greatest customers are Black people. So if you're supporting Planned Parenthood, you're supporting the killing of Black people, which I don't think is right. I don't think killing anybody is a good idea. So if you think Black Lives Matter, don't support Planned Parenthood. I personally believe all lives matter. So I want Black people to live. I want mentally impaired people to live. I want handicapped people to live. I want all people to have a chance at life.
Right.
Now, the National Abortion Rights Action League has teamed up with Planned Parenthood to support this idea founded in the Roe versus Wade decision, like, well, we don't really know when life begins, because at that time they didn't really know. And so they would tell people that, well, what's growing you inside you is just a clump of cells. But now that we know that it's not just a clump of cells through ultrasound, they've changed their format into the idea that, it's a woman's right issue, and it's her body and it's her choice. But we know from science that the DNA, the chromosomes of the baby, are not the same as the mother. Half of them came from the father. So the baby inside the woman is not an extension of that woman. It's a separate body inside her, a separate person. And so their argument that, it's a woman's body and she has the right to do what she wants with her body is falling apart because the baby inside her body is not an extension of her body. And when she gives birth, she does not give birth to an extension of her body. It's a separate human being, right down to the chromosomes.
Right.
And so now they've had to change their tactic to, well, a woman has a right to do what she wants with her body. And if a baby is inside her body, well, she has the right to kill that baby. Okay. But then if we carry that on, okay, so the baby has now been born and the baby is in her car seat. That car seat belongs to her too. So does she have the right to kill that baby because it's in her car seat? Fortunately, right now, we call that murder.
Right.
And also, if that baby is in her crib, okay, does she have the right to kill that baby because it's in her crib? Fortunately, right now, we're not allowed to kill babies in the crib or in a car seat. We're just allowed to kill the baby while it's still inside the mother. So their arguments are falling apart more and more and more. And we know now that at 20 weeks old, that baby can live outside the mother. So that brings the earliest chance that a woman might have a justification for abortion to 20 weeks. And as medical technology gets better and better, it'll get pushed back further and further. And we know that that baby is alive inside the mother, and it's a separate human being. So we have to think back in history, and during the time of chattel slavery here in the U.S., Black people were not considered human beings, which is why they could be sold and killed at will. We recognize now that that was wrong back then, and all the justifications that they made up back then aren't really valid.
Right.
And then moving up to World War II, the Nazis thought that the Jews weren't, fully human, so they too could be killed at will and treated any way you want. And another little known fact, the Japanese thought that they were God's chosen people, and that those people that were not Japanese were not quite human.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of their culture at the time. And so when the Japanese invaded Korea, they didn't have any problem killing the Koreans, and because they weren't really human, and they even ate the Koreans because when they invaded Korea, they didn't have any good supply lines and they needed food, and the people became food for them. And now we still have a group of people that think that unborn human beings are not human and can be killed at will. So that is the history behind this idea that, you can kill human beings at will. And we find out that we were wrong on so many other old ideas, and we are wrong on the unborn also.
Right. And I mean, yeah, I love the example of the Japanese too, because I mean, I'm a big World War II guy. My grandpa served. He fought against Japanese. So I mean, yeah, they told if they didn't kill the citizens like you mentioned, they would tell the citizens that that the Americans or whoever else, Chinese, were not human; they were animals. So I like that's a great example. That really clicks for me. It really clicked on the example. So, but
I'm glad to find somebody else that knows about, how the Japanese thought about other human beings.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's very sad. That's for sure. But that's how they were. back then, and that's how people are still today. If you look at a lot of people are still like that throughout the world. So, kind of about wrapping up. You hear a lot on the news about abortions and what happens if Roe versus Wade gets overturned and all that. What is the stats for women getting abortion right now, high and low? And could you just add your personal opinion or what you think will come true if Roe versus Wade is overturned? Would more women get abortions, do you think?
Okay. Well, putting together stats on abortion is kind of difficult.
Right.
Some people, will point to the Center for Disease Control, also known as the CDC, to get their information. However, the reporting to the CDC is voluntary by the individual states. In New York and California, they don't even report their abortions to the CDC. So some people will point to the stats at the CDC and say, well, you see, abortions are going down.
Sure.
And maybe they are, and maybe they're not. But the CDC is not a good source of information on that. And now that we have chemical abortions using the RU38 pill, where you can just call up a doctor and they'll do like an interview over the internet with you on and make a decision whether to prescribe the abortion pill to you over the internet. And there's even some talk of like having vending machines for the RU38 pill to allow chemical abortions, where you can just, put in your debit card and get the pills, and good luck with that.
Yeah.
And people think that, it's just, something that happens without any complications, but there can be severe complications to that, because the first pill kills the baby, and then the second pill induces labor, and then, the dead baby is delivered. And just like with any pregnancy delivery, there can be complications, and what is, harsh enough to kill the baby can cause complications for the mother too. So just because you can get the pills easily doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Right.
And, people will point to, well, what about, extreme cases like, like rape or incest, and, where the mother's life is threatened, by the baby and growing inside them. And in extreme cases like rape or incest, a pregnancy started with an act of sin, through incest or rape, which is an act of violence.
Right.
And to compound that sin with killing the baby afterward, is like two wrongs still don't make a right. And there are babies who were born in or conceived in rape that, have been born and, go on to lead good, productive lives. And I don't remember exactly the lady's name, but, she was, very pro-abortion. And, one of the things that she pointed to was rape and incest, as a good an excuse to have abortion. And then she found out that she was conceived in rape and that her mom didn't abort her. And then she realized that she was alive today because her mom chose to carry her to term. And it was a very powerful thing for her. And she is now a pro-life person
Nice.
and not a pro-abortion person. So again, when you learn the truth, the arguments fall apart.
Right.
But the Guttmacher Institute has done a lot of research to help put together some statistics on abortion. And in 0.0001% of the cases of abortion, that abortion was from an incestuous relationship. So very, 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 very small.
Right.
Then 0.001 is from rape. Okay. Again, very, very, very small. And in 0.003% of the cases, the woman's life was endangered by the pregnancy. Now that could be, as I mentioned, an ectopic pregnancy where the egg is growing inside the fallopian tube. Some women find out that they have uterine cancer while they're carrying a baby. And then the question becomes, do we remove the cancerous uterus and take the baby out at the same time? Or some women choose to forego chemical therapy, for chemotherapy for cancer in order to save their baby. And sometimes they lose their life. But they recognize the life of the baby to be more important than their own personal life. But the Catholic Church doesn't call women to that extreme amount of martyrdom, but we back them up also.
Right.
Some women get an abortion because there's a serious fetal abnormality, like they might find out that their baby has Down syndrome, but that's only 0.01%. Okay, we haven't even got to 1% yet. Right. We're like way below 1%.
Which 1% is really small to begin with, but yeah, if you haven't gotten there, that's really low.
Right.
Yeah.
And then again, the woman's physical health wasn't threatened by the pregnancy. Again, like an ectopic pregnancy or other serious medical condition. That's again 0.01%. Now, some women say that, well, there might be a psychological reason for a woman not to want to have a baby, like, some severe mental problems that, she thinks this baby's going to kill her or something like that, and she wants to get an abortion for that. Okay, but that's still 0.02%. So we're still not up to 1% yet. So finally, we get into some real meat and potatoes. Some women choose to have an abortion for social and economic reasons. Like a woman might find herself pregnant and doesn't want to scandalize her family. And some women might say, well, I can't afford another baby, so she wants to get an abortion. Okay, so there's about 20% of women get an abortion for that kind of reason. But 75.4% of the women get an abortion for no particular reason at all. It was just an elective abortion. Most of these cases are, women who had sex without contraception, or maybe their contraception failed. So 75% of the time, it's just because the woman chose to kill their baby.
Which is really sad. I mean, you think about it, it's for no particular reason. Yeah. Wow.
Yes. So that's the real truth behind, why women get abortions, just because they wanted to.
Right.
So all those extreme cases that they always drag out to justify abortion, it's very, 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 very small. And even if states passed laws that allowed them to have abortions, only in those very small percentages, that would put Planned Parenthood out of business. And I'm all for putting Planned Parenthood out of business.
Yeah.
All that money could be redirected to pregnancy care clinics, where we help families deal with their unexpected pregnancies instead of just killing the baby.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's a great idea. you could, yeah, do care clinics. You could do more better technology for the babies. You could do, I mean, there's whole different areas that you could go down instead of Planned Parenthood money. That money would go towards something else. So, yeah.
And there's, thousands of families waiting to adopt children that
There
are
is.
ending up, in the trash can through abortion. Um, a lot of couples want to adopt a baby, not so much, a child, an adolescent or a teen or something like that, who may already have other problems that they don't want to deal with. They want to start out with a fresh baby. Um, so any woman that, is forced to carry her baby to term, there will be people lined up to adopt that baby if
And
they don't
that's
raise that baby.
right. And you don't really hear that often. You hear all these people who want abortions just because, like you said, for no particular reason. They might say, "Well, I don't really want a baby right now. I don't know who's going to take care of it. I can't afford it." Go down the list of their, I guess you could say, excuses or what they don't want to do. But you have so many people on the waiting list for a new baby. Actually, my brother just mentioned it the other day to me. He's like, there's a lot of people who are on the list. And I think he said like a number. I'm like, really? He's like, yes. I'm like, wow. Okay, I didn't realize that. But you don't hear that because if you listen to any media, they're all for abortion. It's all fine with them. But you have lots and lots of families who are willing to adopt a baby, which bless them. That's terrific. Like you said, they want a baby who might not have other issues like a teenager might have, or I mean, you get really more and more connecting with the baby too, because you take it as your own. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Mm-hmm. And people don't realize it takes 3 years just to get on the 5-year waiting list for a baby.
Yeah.
First, you have to be approved to be a good parent, and then they'll put you on the 5-year waiting list for a baby to maybe come up. It's, there's plenty of families waiting for a baby. So don't be afraid to carry your baby to term. Give your baby a chance at life.
Right.
And something else I want to mention, like, some women, they have a miscarriage and they lose their baby.
Right.
And the question is, well, what happens to those babies? In the book, Heaven is for Real, Colton Burpo reported, what he had experienced when he visited heaven. And when he visited heaven, he met a girl there who kept hugging him. And, he wasn't too enthusiastic about all these hugs from a girl. And, he found out that this girl was his sister because his mom had a miscarriage before Colton was even born, and he never knew about her. But after he came back from visiting heaven, he mentioned to his mom that he had two sisters. And his mom didn't even know that, the baby that she had miscarried was a girl. Um, and so I encourage people that who do have a miscarriage to at least give their baby a name, because Colton said that his sister in heaven didn't have a name because their parents never gave her a name. So I say, give this child a name. Even if you don't know the sex, give it a more generic name like Pat or something like that. It could be Patricia or Patrick. So give your child a name so that they'll have a name in heaven when you meet them.
Right. Yeah, that's really true. I do sort of remember that one. My mom read that book to us a long time ago, but yeah, yeah, miscarriages. I mean, yeah, like you said, you gotta give them names so they have a name. Like you say, It could be Pat, it could be Taylor, it could be more generic, because it's not like today's society where you can change genders apparently. But I mean, you don't know though. So yeah, awesome. So, but really recommend that book though too. It's Having It's for Real. And then just going back on what you mentioned on this before then, Ken, is Gary Machuda, Father Gabriel both said that a woman after abortion, for no particular reason, like you said, a lot of them do feel the effects after, whether it's emotionally or physically. And yeah, you just got, I mean, you have to pray for them, but they do feel it. And they some women are pressuring. That was a big talk too. It is a woman's choice, but same thing. You don't really get to the details from the media. They say it's a woman's choice, but the woman nowadays actually is not making a whole lot of choices. It's the men, it's the parents, it's the relatives, because truly, and I'm sure you heard this, Ken, is that a woman really feels more connected to the baby when it's in her womb. The man does not until it's born. So yeah, I mean, women do feel that. So yeah, just like I say, if you have a miscarriage, name your baby, but women do feel the effects after abortion one way or the other, usually. So.
Mm-hmm. And the Catholic Church has authorized its priests to forgive the sin of abortion, for any woman. It used to be reserved only for the bishops, but it's now universal throughout the Catholic Church that a priest can forgive that sin. So any woman that has gone through an abortion and is worried about being damned to hell now, there is hope for them. And as mentioned by others, there's Rachel's Vineyard, which is a retreat for women who have experienced abortion to help them get over that loss and that trauma, inflicted on them as well as the baby.
Right. Yeah, so I'll have the link down the bottom for the show, everyone. Ken, before we go, is there anything else you have not thrown out at us that you want, or any other resources people can find, or anything you want final words?
Let's see. On YouTube, I have a playlist, a pro-life playlist.
Okay.
So people can go to YouTube, pro-life playlist, Ken Litchfield. You'll find a bunch of resources there. The movie Unplanned, which is Abby Johnson's story, is a great story. She also has a book, check that out. And if you're looking for arguments, to support the pro-life cause, Trent Horn has a book called Persuasive Pro-Life. So that's a good book, good resource to check out so that you can learn all the good arguments for encouraging women to carry their baby to term and give it up if they can't afford to keep it. But, we have to be pro-life from beginning to end. And we need to help people who are in difficult situations. I'm the Grand Knight of my Knights of Columbus Council till the end of this month.
Wow. Nice.
And we do a lot to support a pregnancy center near my house to help families in difficult situations. And they get no money from the government, unlike Planned Parenthood. It's all on donations. And the Knights of Columbus, we help install ultrasound machines in these pro-life pregnancy care centers, because when women see what is actually growing inside them, 80% of the time they make the right decision to bring their baby to term. And that's the best thing we can do for people.
Right. Well, I mean, I have relatives who are Knights of Columbus, King, so thank you for what you do with that. That's terrific that you're doing that. And I mean, I agree with you that if, like I said, people, once a woman knows there's a baby and it's breathing, she becomes more connected. And like you said, she makes the right decision. Whether maybe she's being forced or it's on her own free will or not. And I just want to throw this out to any woman who's thinking about aborting their child. Please think about it at least twice. It's a human life, and it's a beautiful thing. If for some reason you can't, you just say, I know why I have it. I know why I want to abort it. Please still have it, but at least have someone adopt it, so it's not wasted. Um, don't waste a human life. It's not wasted, and that baby can grow up to be someone really, really great someday, hopefully, with a great other family. If you can't take care of it, but please, anyone who is, or if you know someone who is about to abort or wants to abort, please talk to them, because that's one way of ending abortion too. So awesome. I'll put the link to your YouTube, Ken, at the comments or description, so people can go to that if they are able to. So, but once again, Ken, amazing job with all your resources and all your notes. Learning so much today. So thank you on joining me here about the abortion month as we continue the awaiting of the vote.
Right. Thanks for having me, Bill. Really love doing this kind of stuff and helping people to learn the truth, because the truth will set you free.
Right. That's from scripture, folks. That's not Ken Litchfield saying that. That's truth. That's actual truth right there. So if you see his background behind him, that's his book, and let's me show it here again. It's How Old Is Your Church? We did a couple of shows on this last year, really great shows, and like you said, how old is your church? You got everything is rooted in the Catholic faith, one way or the other. I mean, look at abortion; we're against it right from the start. So get the book. I'm highly recommending. All the other great links will be down in the descriptions. So, but for Ken Litchfield, Billy Sawboy, thank you again for joining us at the table this week at Captain Table Talk. We will continue our abortion series next week. So hope you join us then at Catholic Table Talk Podcast. This is a podcast where everything Catholic is on the table.